I have been brought up alongside my stepmother's daughter, Emma. She's just a year younger than me. I'm 19, and she's 18. To put it bluntly, she's a complete spoiled brat and utterly self-centered. A few days ago was her medical school acceptance celebration, a grand affair because she loves making everything about her into a massive spectacle. Our parents, both successful doctors themselves, always indulge her with these lavish events. I celebrated my acceptance into nursing school a couple of months back, but it was a completely different scene. I just had a small dinner with a few friends from my pre-nursing program. That's exactly what I wanted. I've never been comfortable with big crowds or being the center of attention. But that's Emma's thing, and honestly, whatever makes her happy. However, she decided to use this against me during her celebration party in the most humiliating way possible. The party was held at an upscale restaurant downtown, filled with our parents' colleagues from the hospital and Emma's pre-med friends. Everyone was mingling and enjoying themselves when Emma announced she wanted to make a speech. At first, it was the usual stuff, thanking everyone for coming, expressing gratitude. Then she moved on to our parents, thanking them for supporting her dream of becoming a doctor. That's when things started taking an uncomfortable turn, because she began comparing her achievements to my lesser career choice in nursing. The atmosphere in the room shifted noticeably. I could feel the eyes of several doctors and medical professionals turning towards me, some with pity, others with barely concealed judgment. My hands started trembling under the table, but I kept my face neutral, years of practice helping me maintain my composure. The cruel speech continues. Because it was true. Emma had always been treated preferentially, getting the best of everything while I worked part-time jobs to help fund my education. But for her to bring it up so publicly, especially in a room full of medical professionals, felt like a deliberate attempt to highlight the disparity in our chosen paths. The worst part was watching our parents beam with pride as she spoke, seemingly oblivious to how her words were affecting me. Then it got even worse. Emma started boasting about how she was following in our parents' footsteps to become a real medical professional, her exact words, while pointedly looking at me. "I'm just so grateful," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "that I'll be carrying on the family legacy of being a doctor, not just settling for something less demanding." I sat there, my nursing textbook tucked away in my bag under the table, feeling every word like a physical blow. She made disparaging comments about my grades in pre-med courses, conveniently leaving out that I'd been working 20 hours a week to support myself while she had private tutors. She mocked my choice to pursue nursing, implying it was because I couldn't handle the rigors of medical school, completely ignoring that it was a calling I'd chosen deliberately. The other guests were visibly uncomfortable now, shifting in their seats and avoiding eye contact. A few of the nurses present, colleagues of mine from my clinical rotations, were exchanging dark looks. But Emma seemed oblivious to the tension, or maybe she was enjoying it. She wrapped up her speech by declaring how thankful she was that our parents had at least one child who wouldn't disappoint them in the medical field. I couldn't even move from my seat. The room felt suffocating, the elegant table settings and champagne flutes suddenly seeming to mock me. Because even though Emma and I had never gotten along, this public humiliation, this deliberate attempt to belittle my chosen profession in front of dozens of healthcare professionals, was beyond anything I'd expected. The revelation. And then, while we were all frozen in this unbearable moment, my Aunt Diana, Dad's sister, and a prominent lawyer in the city, stood up. She walked purposefully to where I was sitting and handed me an envelope. The confusion must have shown on my face, but she quietly told me not to open it until she'd finished speaking. The second speech of the evening managed to overshadow Emma's cruel monologue with an even more shocking revelation. Diana revealed that Emma wasn't adopted through any agency. She was Diana's biological daughter. The silence in the restaurant became deafening as she explained that she'd been planning to tell Emma after the celebration, now that she was 18 and presumably mature enough to handle the truth. Diana's voice was steady as she continued, explaining how she'd gotten pregnant while establishing her law career. She wasn't ready for motherhood then, but didn't want to terminate the pregnancy. She and her boyfriend weren't committed to each other, with no plans for marriage. So she'd approached her brother and sister-in-law about adoption, believing it would be the best solution for everyone. I thought, Diana said, her voice carrying clearly through the silent restaurant, that if my daughter was being raised by two respected doctors, she would grow up to be a person of integrity and compassion. Clearly, she paused, looking directly at Emma. I was mistaken. No person with genuine character would deliberately humiliate their sibling like this, especially not over their choice to pursue such a noble profession as nursing. I finally felt a small sense of vindication hearing those words. For the first time that evening, someone had stood up for me, acknowledging the cruelty of Emma's behavior. Then Diana turned to me and said, "Open the envelope, Sarah." With slightly shaking hands, I did, and found a blank check inside. That was meant to be Emma's gift to help with medical school, Diana explained. But I've changed my mind. Fill in whatever amount you need. It's yours now. Use it for your nursing education. The aftermath. Emma's reaction was instantaneous and explosive. She lunged across the table, trying to snatch the check from my hands, her perfectly arranged medical school acceptance party dissolving into chaos. I managed to pull the check away just in time, while our parents had to physically restrain her. The look in her eyes was wild, focused solely on the check. She didn't even seem to register that she'd just discovered Diana was her biological mother. "That's my money," Emma screamed, her voice echoing through the now silent restaurant. "I earned that. I got into medical school." "She's just a nurse." Several of the healthcare professionals who had been quietly uncomfortable during her speech were now openly staring, their expressions a mix of shock and disapproval. I couldn't handle any more of this public spectacle. Without a word, I gathered my things and walked out, feeling the weight of dozens of eyes on my back. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely call a ride share. I could still hear the commotion from inside the restaurant. Emma's shouting, our parents' attempts to calm her, and Diana's firm voice cutting through it all. Later that night, I locked myself in my dorm room, thankful that I'd moved out of our parents' house when I started nursing school. I spent the next 2 hours texting with friends from my program, trying to process what had happened. The notifications on my phone showed missed calls and messages from our parents, but I couldn't bring myself to look at them. When I finally checked my messages around midnight, I saw that Emma's meltdown had made its way onto social media. Several guests had recorded parts of both speeches, and clips were already circulating among the hospital staff. My clinical instructor had even sent a supportive message, telling me that true healthcare was about teamwork, not hierarchy. The forced apology. Eventually, I emerged from my room to find several missed calls from our parents. When I finally answered, they told me they were deeply sorry about everything that had happened at the party. Their voices were strained, professional masks slipping as they tried to manage this crisis that could affect their standing at the hospital. "Emma wants to apologize," Mom said, her doctor's authority creeping into her voice. They put Emma on speakerphone, and she muttered what had to be the most insincere apology I'd ever heard. It was obvious she was only doing this because our parents were standing right there, probably worried about how this incident would affect their reputation in the medical community. "Now that Emma has apologized," Dad said, using the same tone he probably used with difficult patients, "you need to return that check. It was meant for her medical school expenses." That's when I finally found my voice. "No," I said firmly, surprising myself with how steady I sounded. The check was given to me in front of an entire room of witnesses. And Diana made her decision after seeing how Emma really behaves. I won't be manipulated into giving it up. Emma's response was immediate. She started wailing so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. But this time, her typical tantrum tactics didn't affect me. I spoke over her crying, my voice growing stronger with each word. For years, I said, you've treated Emma like she was somehow superior, just because she wanted to be a doctor like you. You dismissed my calling to nursing as settling for less. She would never have felt entitled to humiliate me in front of your colleagues if you hadn't encouraged her sense of superiority all these years. The silence on the other end was deafening, broken only by Emma's theatrical sobbing. Then Mom spoke, her voice cold and clinical. If you can't find it in yourself to forgive your sister, then maybe you should take some time to think about what family really means. The decision. You're right, I replied, my nursing training helping me maintain a professional calm. I do need to think about what family means. And right now, I'm done with this toxic version of it. I grabbed my already packed overnight bag. My clinical rotations had taught me to always be prepared, and headed for Aunt Diana's place. During the drive, my phone exploded with notifications. My parents were sending message after message about family unity, about how Emma's speech was just a misunderstanding, how her outburst was just stress from medical school acceptance. Not once did they acknowledge how their years of favoritism had led to this moment. At Diana's house, Diana welcomed me without hesitation. As a lawyer, she was used to handling difficult situations, and her home office felt like a safe haven from the storm. I've been watching this unfold for years, she said, pouring us both tea. I always hoped Emma would grow into someone different, but enabling behavior rarely leads to personal growth. I had questions, so many questions, and Diana answered them all with the same direct honesty she'd shown at the party. She explained how she and our parents had managed to keep the adoption secret, living in different states at the time. Only my grandparents and a few trusted family members had known the truth. I never wanted to replace your mom as Emma's mother, Diana explained, her lawyer's precision making every word clear. I just wanted her to know the truth now that she's an adult. But after tonight, she shook her head, disappointment evident in her expression. The following days, the aftermath played out through a series of increasingly desperate messages from my parents and Emma. They weren't concerned about my well-being or how their actions had affected me. They were focused entirely on the check. Emma even created multiple social media accounts after I blocked her, her messages growing increasingly hysterical about her stolen medical school money. The confrontation. One morning, while I was waiting for my food delivery at Diana's house, Emma showed up unannounced. Before I could close the door, she forced her way in, her pre-med textbooks clutched to her chest like a shield. "You're trying to steal everything from me," she screamed, her voice echoing through the foyer. "First my money, and now my real mother." Diana emerged from her home office, her lawyer's composure a stark contrast to Emma's hysteria. "Both of you, calm down," she said firmly. "Emma, your behavior at that party is what led to my decision about the check. If you're here to build a relationship with me, it should be about that, not about money." But Emma wasn't listening. She turned on Diana, her voice rising to a shriek. "You abandoned me. You have no right to judge me now. You have to make up for what you did." Her hands were shaking, her carefully maintained pre-med student image crumbling completely. Diana's response was measured but firm. "I didn't abandon you, Emma. I made a careful decision to place you with parents I trusted. Your actual behavior is what's disappointing me now. You're acting entitled to money and status you haven't earned, while showing complete disrespect for healthcare professionals like your sister." Emma's response was to stomp her foot, actually stomp it, like a toddler, and scream even louder. Diana's patience finally ran out. She physically guided Emma to the door, her voice taking on the tone she probably used in court. "Leave now, or I'm calling the police. And don't come back until you've grown up enough to have a real conversation." A few days later, Emma returned with our parents, leading to an even more dramatic confrontation. They accused me of stealing Emma's future, while Diana defended my right to use the money for my nursing education. The irony of them accusing someone else of favoritism seemed completely lost on them. The argument escalated until the neighbors called the police. As the patrol car's lights flashed in the driveway, our parents left with Emma, declaring they were done with both me and Diana. I was surprised to find I felt more relief than sadness. Epilogue. I'm back at nursing school now, and the distance has been healing. Emma has been trying to contact Diana behind our parents' backs, probably still hoping for financial support, but that's their issue to resolve. The check Diana gave me has been deposited, and while I won't disclose the amount, it's enough to ensure I can complete my nursing degree without financial stress. My clinical rotations have been going well, and ironically, the whole incident has made me even more certain about my career choice. The nurses I work with have been incredibly supportive, and I've learned that healthcare is about teamwork and compassion, not hierarchy or status. I've blocked all contact from my parents and Emma, though they still try to reach me through burner phones and new social media accounts. Their messages swing between calling me psychotic for cutting them off and demanding I make things right. I've saved screenshots of everything, just in case, but I don't respond anymore. The most valuable lesson I've learned from all this isn't about money or status. It's about recognizing toxic relationships and having the courage to walk away from them. I'm focusing on my nursing studies now, building relationships with people who respect all healthcare professionals, and creating a future based on caring for others rather than tearing them down. Diana has become a mentor figure in my life, showing me what real family support looks like. She's helped me set up a financial plan for my future and introduced me to her network of professional women who've built successful careers while maintaining their integrity. Sometimes I think about Emma's medical school acceptance speech, how she thought she was showing her superiority, but instead revealed everything wrong with our family dynamic. In nursing, we're taught that healing isn't just about treating symptoms, it's about addressing root causes. In walking away from that toxic environment, I finally followed my own healing path.